Hey guys, welcome back to more political chatter. Today we will be talking about the state of the 2026 Senate races and how Republicans are not in as good of a position as they should be. More and more states are becoming out of reach for the Republican Party in the 2026 midterm Senate races. What do I mean by that? Well, what you see here on this map is my prediction with five toss up seats, which are all seats that I believe will be under a 5% margin for either party as of right now. Those ones are labeled as toss up. We can't call those. Michigan, North Carolina, and Georgia, I do have going blue in my forecast, as you could see right here, while Texas and Alaska, I believe, are lean Republican. But that doesn't matter. This is where my current forecast is, and the vast majority of forecasters hover somewhere right around here. And what you see here is where Republicans should be. You could see a stark difference here. Republicans in my current forecast, with the toss up seats not included, are at 49 seats, Democrats at 46. In any popular administration, or even, moderately popular administration, moderately popular party for that matter, this is where Republicans and Democrats should be right now. Quite a difference. Republicans should be at about 51 seats if they were somewhat popular among the American public, and Democrats should be at a measly 41, with the rest of these states all being lean. And it makes sense. This is, my interpretation of where they should be, and it's based off of the 2024 presidential election and how well Donald Trump did. When you look at all these states, you'll see almost all of them were lean for either party. So it makes sense that they should be lean going into 2026 as of right now. Take New Hampshire for instance. Kamala Harris won the state of New Hampshire by just 2.8%, the slimmest of margins. But what we're seeing in New Hampshire right now is the complete fall of the Republican Party here, the failure to attract a good candidate. Let's see if they have any polls yet. But you could see Chris Pappas is winning by 6 points. He's almost certain to be the Democratic nominee against John Sununu, the former governor from the early 2000s, who's a potential candidate, not yet announced. Chris Pappas is winning by 6%. That's a lot more than 2.8. And then against Scott Brown, the former senator from Massachusetts, I want to say, who now lives here for some reason. He's beating Scott Brown by 15%. Again, that's a lot more than 2.8%. So what we have seen throughout this early Trump administration is the fact that people are souring already on this administration. They don't approve of it, even a good chunk of his own voters. But not only that, it's one thing to answer that you approve of the administration in a poll that they send you, but will you actually turn out to vote for them in the general election? That's why I'm skeptical that Republicans will do even as well as they're doing in polling, which is already pretty bad. But I feel like I think they could do a lot worse, really, when it comes to turnout. So Chris Pappas, for example, the Democrat in New Hampshire, not even some political juggernaut either. This is not some, outlier case, heavily overperforming Kamala Harris in the state of New Hampshire, making it a likely state, almost a safe state. So that is why I have, for example, New Hampshire, a likely Democratic state in my forecast. You could see I have it as a 7.5% margin right now, but in the map where Republicans should be, it should be a toss-up state. If Trump was doing as well with the American people as he did in the 2024 election, this race might lean Democratic, but we would not be seeing D plus 6, D plus 15, D plus 12, plus 10 polls from the state. It should be a lean characterization for the Democrats right now, which would make it, a toss up characterization. Again, that's where Republicans should be, but they're not because people hate this administration so far. So while they should have a toss up race right now in New Hampshire, and this goes for all the other states that you see here, they do not. This is not just a one-off with New Hampshire either. That is just a prime example. When you look at a state like Minnesota, Minnesota voted for Kamala Harris by 4.2%. 4 years earlier, it voted for Biden by 7. Republicans are seeing positive trends in the state. But when you look at the state of the race, in Minnesota. You've got the Trump administration ruining Republicans nationwide, but you also have internal destruction because of what we're seeing in these primaries. For example, and this we saw so often in 2022 and even part of 2024, you have the worst of the worst candidates, general election candidates, I might add, emerge as frontrunners in these races. For example, in Minnesota, you have the former NBA player Royce White leading the pack. He won the Mike Lindell endorsement, which is um, and important in Minnesota, which is funny in Republican primaries. But Royce White, we don't have any polling, I don't think. But I mean, just look at fundraising. He's outpacing everyone in fundraising. It looks like he's going to be once again the nominee for Senate. Now, this is not some outsider who might, outperform expectations. No, we know how Royce White does in elections. While Kamala Harris won the state of Minnesota in 2024 by 4%, on the same exact ballot, Amy Klobuchar, the Democrat, won by 16 points, outperformed Kamala Harris by 12% in the state of Minnesota. Now, Amy Klobuchar is a relatively strong candidate, at least for Minnesota, but you've got to admit a large part of that has to do with the fact that Royce White was the nominee. I won't go into him specifically because that doesn't matter, but he is a more MAGA-aligned, very far-right extremist sort of candidate that runs his entire campaign around praising Donald Trump. So, you have on one hand the unpopularity of the Trump administration sinking Republican campaigns nationwide, but on the other hand, you have Republicans self-destructing like we saw in 2022. Remember in 2022, you had just a massive underperformance by the Republican Party across the board. You had Carrie Lake in the Arizona gubernatorial election unexpectedly lose. She was leading in polls, but she lost to someone who barely campaigned at all, Katie Hobbs. Katie Hobbs won by 0.7%. I guarantee you, if there was any more more normal Republican than Carrie Lake, Republicans would have that governor mansion right now. They ran some scandal-ridden attorney general. I forget his name. In Kansas, prompting the Democrat. Oh, Eric Schmidt. I'm sorry. Something Schmidt. It's not Eric. Derek Schmidt. That allowed Laura Kelly to win another term in deep red Kansas, which voted for Donald Trump by like 14% 2 years before. You had, Doug Mastriano in the state of Pennsylvania running for governor. Incredibly far right. Josh Shapiro won by 15%. So all across the board, Republicans ran very weak candidates, and in the very few instances where they ran very strong candidates, for example, Joe Lombardo in Nevada, a more moderate traditional Republican guy, they won, and they flipped that seat, and Joe Lombardo won by 1.5%. In Oregon, they won a very more moderate. I'm pretty sure she ran on being pro-choice. Christine Drazan, Republican, if I remember correctly, in Oregon. And Oregon, a safe Democratic state, was narrowed down to a 3.4% margin. New York, Lee Zeldin was in 2022 on the more moderate side. He lost by only 6 points. Now, not so much. So, Republicans, it's so obvious when they ran strong candidates, they did better. But when you run these MAGA-aligned, very far-right figures, they lose. So in these, state after state after state, it is becoming apparent states where they should be performing well. New Hampshire, North Carolina voted for Trump in 2024 by 3.2%. They should be winning that Senate race there. They're not. In Georgia, Trump won it by 2.2. They should be winning that Senate race there. They're not. They're losing to the incumbent Jon Ossoff. In North Carolina, that's a Republican seat. They're underwater right now. The former governor, Roy Cooper, is looking like he's going to flip that seat. Michigan, Donald Trump won it by 1.4%. They should be winning there. That is essentially a dead heat. If not, then it's a Democratic advantage there in Michigan. Minnesota should be super close right now. Harris won it by 4, but it's not. No, New Hampshire should be really, really close. This should be a toss-up. Harris won it by 2.8. It is not, as we just looked. Chris Pappas is winning polls there by 10, 15 points. New Mexico and Virginia, Harris plus 6% margins. Those might be Democratic favored, but they should at least be coming close in the states of Virginia and New Mexico, and they are not. Those are looking like, as you could see in my forecast, they're looking like they're going to be likely Democratic states. But what we are seeing are states that, even more so, states, on the flip side, Republican states that weren't swing in 2024 are now approaching that characterization. When you look at states like Iowa, look at Iowa. Trump won it by 13 points. Well, we had a poll, which is outdated now because Joni Ernst is not running for reelection. She's the Republican senator there in Iowa. Well, we saw against every single Democratic challenger in the race, Nathan Sage, Zach Walls, Nate Turek, etc., Joni Ernst won by a maximum of 4 points. Against Zach Walsh, she won by 1. Against Sage, she wins by 4. Against Norris, she wins by 3. And by Turek, she wins by 4. So, a state that Donald Trump won by 13 points is now a Republican plus 4 or 3 or 1 state if we're looking at this map. So, yes, you have former swing states now becoming out of reach for the Republicans and for Donald Trump in 2026. But furthermore, you have former, pretty safe or likely Republican states getting closer in 2026. Now, those are replacing the former swing states. Now, these safe Republican states are becoming the swing states. You've got Nebraska, of course, where you've got the independent union leader, Dan Osborne, a leftist, is winning in his internal poll, I'll mind you, by 1%. The poll before that, by Change Research, sponsored by Dan Osborne, had the Republican up, Pete Ricketts, by 1%. So that race is looking to be very, very tight. So when it comes to the 2026 Senate races, Democrats, of course, because of the map, are going to be behind no matter what. But with this map, Republicans should be dominating. They are not. And this is what the map actually looks like right now. New Mexico and Virginia are likely. New Hampshire is likely. New Jersey is probably safe. Maine is a likely flip. Remember, Susan Collins won that seat in 2020 by 8.6%. I have Graham Plattner, if he is the nominee, winning by 6.5. He will absolutely dominate. I have North Carolina flipping to a lean margin. I have Georgia staying with Democrats by a lean margin. I have Michigan as a lean margin for Democrats. I have Minnesota as a likely margin for Democrats. Meanwhile, I have Nebraska as likely. I have Alaska as lean, and I have Texas as lean. So, and things could change. If Democrats field a strong candidate in Kansas, some independent Dan Osborne-esque leader, that might narrow down to likely. If Amy McGrath is looking like she's doing well in Kentucky, that could narrow down to likely. If South Carolina, they get someone. If they get John Bel Edwards, the former governor to run in Louisiana, that could narrow down to likely. So the more, the more stuff the Trump administration does, it appears, the more cuts to stuff, the more disruption to the normal way of American life the Trump administration does, the less motivated his own voters from 2024 will be, motivated to turn out for his party, for the Republicans, in 2026. So point being, these states that were swing states in 2024, tilt and lean margins, are now becoming more and more in the safe hands of the Democrats, out of reach for the Republican Party. And these states that Donald Trump won comfortably, Iowa, Ohio, Arizona, are really narrowing up on the Senate side, and we didn't talk about it, but the gubernatorial side, the same thing is happening. So thank you all for watching this video. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to subscribe down below. That really helps out a lot. Drop a like as well to help this video in the algorithm. And share it and watch all my other videos as well. And I will see you all later.